Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 654. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible, bridge-defying, wonders what his perfect Dark Crisis Worlds without a whatnot would look like. And, of course, he is the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to talk about Dark Crisis Worlds without a Justice League, Superman #1. And we're also going to talk about the wrap-up of the Joker with issue number 15. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Dark Crisis Worlds without a Justice League Wonder Woman one-shot, 40% off, only $2.99. And we have the Tim Drake Robin series, issue number 1, 50% off, $1.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have the 52 Omnibus hardcover 2022 edition. It's $175 regularly, 50% off, only $87.50. They also have Justice League Dark, the Great Wickedness trade paperback. $16.99 regularly, 50% off, only $8.59. Superman 78 hardcover, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, we have an upcoming contest. It is a spoiler warning contest. It started on July 3rd. We'll wrap up September 3rd, 2022. Plenty of time for you to enter. We'd like you to create and send us a spoiler warning audio file, either through email to ragingbullets@gmail.com or left on our voicemail line, which is 1-440-388-4434, or drnorge on Skype, where you take the role of Jim Segulin and put a spoiler warning together. If you do not want to produce one yourself, you can write the premise for your spoiler warning for Jim, and he will put it together, and you have an entry into the podcast. We're going to pick 3 winners, and it's going to be your choice of book from the September previews, either hardcover or trade, a spot on the show where you get to choose the book, or if for some reason you're like, I don't want to be on the podcast, it's not my bag. I would, though, like to choose the topic, and you guys talk about the topic. We want to be very flexible in this. We want participation in this, whatever your comfort level is. Obviously, having you on the show would be of pure joy for us. So we're offering 3 prizes from that. We welcome you to participate. Remember, you got till September 3rd, 2022 to participate in that contest. So, Jim, I think it's about time you show them how's it done.
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, there's a number of things I want to talk about this week for Speeding Bullets. Remember a couple episodes ago I talked about Batman Unburied?
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil anything, but I want to correct some of what I said in the sense that I thought it was one thing. You know, I was saying, oh, I know this is Elseworlds and it's really good Elseworlds and that type of thing. I'm going to change that to Black Label.
Ooh, nice.
There's some reasons why I'm going to change that to Black Label and just leave it at that. What I'm going to tell people is it's the Spotify podcast, Batman Unburied. I would highly recommend listening to it, but it's one of those where you're going to really have to give it, it's 10 episodes. I would say do yourself a really good favor and listen to at least the first 4 episodes before you make a decision on it, because it has some twists and turns that you think it's one thing, and then partway through, it's like, oh, wait. Is this? Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. It's one of those. You really have to just keep the faith and kind of trust and go along with it. It's just fantastic. I listened to the whole thing all the way through, all 10 episodes. I'm so thrilled there's going to be a season 2. Really thrilled there's going to be another Spotify podcast, Harley Quinn and the Joker, Sound Mind. Guess who's playing Harley Quinn?
Yeah, I see. Christina Ricci, man. That's awesome.
How sweet is that? And thank you to Eli for posting that on our Facebook group. I didn't know that. I mean, that's super cool. But these Spotify series are really, really great. And very similar. Eli's a part of Life with Althar. I am loving audio drama right now. It's something that's just become a passion play for me. I love Doctor Who audio drama. I love the Batman stuff. I love Life with Althar. Things like this. Audio drama for me, when I'm driving to work, when I'm out, yard work has been something where I actually look forward to mowing the lawn. Because of the fact that I throw on some noise-canceling headphones and I listen to shows, really good audio drama right now. So this kind of stuff is right up my alley. It's really, really great. Talkville. 2 episodes in to this Smallville-focused podcast. It's Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum going episode by episode through Smallville. Have you get a chance to listen to this yet, Jim?
I haven't had a chance yet.
Oh, dude. I'm watching the show. So what I'm doing, my move is I'm watching the episode. I'm then listening to the podcast with them talking about it. It's so good. Because they're not like talking through it scene by scene. What they're doing is they watch it and then they talk about it afterwards. So it's really great for on-the-go people. Watch the episode, go listen to the podcast. What I'm going to do now, my new move is going to be, so I'm watching the episode slightly before the podcast. Now I'm going to be an episode ahead because I think I'm going to call into this thing. And in order to do that, I want to be a little bit ahead of where they're at so I can at least, get to them in a timely fashion and potentially give some comments on the show. Because I like the podcast that much. I'm probably going to want to Patreon this thing too. It's a really good podcast. And I appreciate the fact that this is out there. Huge Smallville fan. Boy, does that show hold up. Which says a lot considering the amount of time that's passed, but it really is the forefather to everything that we're enjoying right now in DC TV, and I'm really digging it. Did you see on our Facebook group that James Webb Space Telescope image where it's the Zod and all of them from the Superman? I thought that was terrific.
Yeah, I chuckled with that one. That was outstanding.
Ed Brubaker is joining the Batman the Caped Crusader as a writer. So we've got this new animated series that's coming out, and Ed Brubaker, who wrote some of the most gritty Batman, is back again, and he's going to be involved in this animated series. The more I hear about this series, the more excited I get that we're getting another, what looks to be a really high-quality Batman animated series coming out.
Yeah, I guess he's okay.
Zatanna and the Ripper's out on Webtoons. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet. If you haven't, there's a link in our Facebook group. You can go there, start reading this and enjoying it on Webtoons. I love that there's an additional platform now for delivery of comic book stories, and Webtoons is really doing a nice job with this. We now have, this isn't DC related, but it worries me because we've been talking a lot recently about the fate of comics and are concerned about the future of comics. And I'm not a sky is falling kind of guy. I feel like talent and creativity in comics is going to evolve with new mediums and find new ways to deliver stories. So I'm not of the mindset that comics are going to go away. Comics are going to adapt. Comics are going to evolve. But what I do hate seeing is stuff like this. Oni Press is their panels at San Diego Comic-Con were canceled, and there was a number of people that were laid off. And it's the vice president of marketing, senior editor, and more laid off. I hate seeing this because Oni Press has been around for a long time, and if you're not familiar with the imprint, Oni Press and Lion Forge, they've done just a lot of really cool stuff. And over the years, I'm not going to do it justice. I've read a lot from Oni Press. I haven't read everything, but I know I've picked up things either in collected editions or in single issues or whatever over the years. I hate seeing anything happen to a long-standing comic delivery like Oni Press. And this is something that it's a sign of the times, unfortunately. But this really bothered me, just because I hate seeing this. So my thoughts go out to anybody that lost their jobs. I hope these people land somewhere, because these are creatives. These are people that are involved behind the scenes that are keeping comics coming out. They're doing some really cool things to keep expanding the medium. And I know it's something that we're going to be talking about, actually, and we've got a voicemail segment that we're going to talk about later. We're going to talk more about how comics may potentially evolve, and we've got some thoughts from Russell on that one. It's just something I get worried about. There's a trailer up on our Facebook group, and thank you to the team. And when I say the team, we've got some really cool people that are just providing this content. Batman One Bad Day. I love that DC's producing comic trailers. I think it's really important nowadays to have these things on YouTube, really be doing this outreach. These are 8 standalone 64-page comics featuring definitive tales of Batman's world-famous enemies. This is super cool. It's top talent that is creating these things. I'm excited for these. I love these 64-page. I love the 80-page things because these are things that used to be before throwaways. And I'm a broken record with saying this, but now you just expect these, and they are delivering high-quality stories. I'm glad to see that shift in these types. Do you look forward to those when you see these one-shots and specials and things like that? Are they things that jump in your...
Yeah, actually, it's funny. Like this one, I'm getting it digitally. And but I'm actually looking forward to the collected of this, wondering how they're going to collect this all, because this will be a meaty tome. Whether I can't see them doing it as one. Maybe they're going to do it as a series. I don't know how they're going to, but there's going to be some form of collection of this. So that's what I'm really looking forward to that. I'm getting it digitally to read it, but the collected, that's where I'm wondering how they're going to handle that.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see how they're going to do those collected editions, too. I couldn't agree with you more. So, Jim, on that note, unless you have something else that you want to add, I figured let's jump into talking some comics.
Yes.
Oh, no, you don't.
Our first discussion this episode is going to be of Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Justice League Superman. The writer is Tom King. Artist is Chris Burnham. Colors by Adriano Lucas. Letters by Troy Peteri. Cover by Burnham and Lucas. Variant cover by Steve Beach. Associate editor Chris Rosa. Editor Paul Kaminsky. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Superboy created by Jerry Siegel by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And apologies for any name butchery. We'll also talk a little bit about the creative team on the Aquaman portion of this story. But you and I were just going to get into a discussion about this. Let's talk about the title, right?
Yes.
So as you pointed out to me and corrected me, it's Superman Worlds Without a Justice League. So this is saying a lot with our Earth being, or at least what we consider to be the DC Earth, being the primary one, but spouting off to these other worlds where there are Justice Leagues. So taking them out of the game doesn't just affect our world, it takes place in multiple. So tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny because I caught the S after reading this issue, after reading this and reading the Aquaman and started thinking about what was going on. That's when I noticed, oh, it's not World Without a Justice League, it's Worlds. So I was like, ooh, that does add to it because, again, this with everything going on in the Dark Crisis and the multiverse and the infinite multiverse versus the 52 universes versus whatever version is going to come out next. What is going to happen to the universe? What's going to happen to these other worlds? What's going to happen? And it was kind of neat, just that realization of that extra S in there. I was like, oh, that is a neat concept. And it's one of the things I liked about this because we're, throwing around, what does this mean? Would be just the one shots. Where are these going to go? What were they going to talk about? We're wondering, is this going to give us an idea where the Justice League is at? And I think it does, actually. Especially when you get to the Aquaman portion, it does show what happened to the current Earth Zero Justice League. So I think it's a neat, just concept and idea. Again, Dark Crisis, I went into it thinking it was going to be like death metal all over again, and it's something completely different.
And that's its strength.
I love that. I love that about this.
This really, for me, feels fresh. And I want to be careful. What I want to say with that is, it feels like it honors the history of what's come before it while at the same time delivering something new, delivering something that moves the needle forward. And I'm fine with the fact that it's connected to everything that's come before. I want that. I want continuity out of this. So yay for them for doing that. But at the same time, I feel like, we're getting this story. Am I right? Like, I felt like this is very connected to what's going on with Barry right now. And
big time.
Yeah, and I love that, because this is what I was hoping for these one-shots, is like, I'm like, I hope what's going on with them is connected to Barry, and so feels like this. But picking out something very specific. So with Clark, let's just jump to it. With Clark, it's the fact that his kid grew up and had a whole many years where his dad was not there to witness it. Key moments in your life, where you're a parent. Let's take it from the standpoint of you and I both don't have kids, but we have key pivotal moments in our lives where, our love and connection with our parents comes from the fact that they were there for those pivotal moments in our life, both good and bad. We can, take those points and go, Mom and Dad were there. Mom was there, Dad was there. I mean, in various configurations and things like that, you can connect with that. Clark missed all that with his son. Jor-El was there because of that kookiness that happened. Now, he's in a world or in a bubble or whatever it is. Whether he's dead or not is still a piece that we're trying to figure out. What does dead mean in the case of Dark Crisis? But whatever that is, this limbo that he's in, is he's been put in his bubble where he is being given a chance at something that he would not want to give up. A different kind of life where he gets to be there with his son. Boy, did I love this issue. This is an example of what you and I have talked about during the many years we've done this podcast. This is what you do with one-shot tie-ins to a series. Do you need this to be reading Dark Crisis proper? No. But does this add something to the whole experience? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And boy, as a standalone, valid, connecting thread to this whole thing, what a great, great Superman story that's here.
One of the things I loved about this was, as you said, this is kind of like what they're doing with Barry. Why Barry isn't trying to run away and try to save the multiverse. They gave him that perfect life. Mm-hmm. They're doing that with all the heroes. This is whatever power trying to trap them. I don't know if it's siphoning them off power, keeping them busy. I don't know what it is, but I loved how that played out, and especially because I didn't really realize that until reading the Aquaman stuff. I'm reading the Superman story thinking this is an alternate Earth. Thinking, oh, okay, they're going to be talking about other Earths, other Superman. Oh, that's kind of neat because, Clark looks a little differently. Obviously, John's costume is more Robin-esque versus, the traditional Superman one until later on. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But then I read the Aquaman story. I'm like, oh, that's what this is. Oh, this is brilliant. So my second, third read-throughs were completely dramatically different, looking for stuff like this and noticing little stuff. I was like, oh, that is outstanding. So I absolutely love this. 100% so looking forward to the next one just because I want to see what happens with the next hero, what happens with the next group. It's and also I want to see how they break out of this. Yeah. How do they get free of this? Because with this story, one, this is a fabulous Superman story, flat out. Wonderful, great story. Love all the characters. Love Lois in there. Love John. Love Clark in there. How they interacted, how they dealt with their crisis that they're dealing with. With that it's a dark side universe, and how do you deal with that? And I love that story being told. But then you do think back, and you're like, but this is really our Clark. This is really our Superman who's dealing with this to for whatever the big bad's big giant plan is. I'm like, oh man, completely just like I was like. Head mind blown.
You know why it's the Robin costume, right?
No, I couldn't figure that one out.
Because he's envious of Bruce because Bruce got to watch his kid grow up.
Oh, dang it. I'm loving it even more now.
I was like so heady. I'm like, oh my God, is that cool? So they're delivering him like everything that he was, like subconsciously things. We all have them, right?
Yeah.
Those subconscious things that we can't even articulate, or we maybe aren't even aware of, that are a thing. You know, I mean, we're all envious of things, or, you know, admiring things that our friends have. The thing that I loved about this was such attention to detail in story and in art. I'll give you a great example. I'm at that page where we see him in that Robin costume for the first time, and he's pushing on the doorway, and you see the cracks in the wall.
Yes.
I really loved the art. The art in this was fantastic. Art, colors, everything. Attention to detail. The story had attention to detail because of what I'm mentioning with that Robin piece. I'm like, that is really heady, but super cool. I love that the Apple computer's like an Apple Core, where like, this isn't quite our world, but we're going to play around with it a little bit.
Yep.
Superman's costume being more reminiscent of like a golden agey kind of hybrid Superman thing, I thought was a really, really cool piece. Getting back to simpler times, the Brainiac like robot, and Superman saving lives, and John like being, you know, a big part of that. Them having moments where, you know, it's father and son fighting together like Bruce and Damian did. Even though they're, you know, Bruce and Damian certainly are far more dysfunctional, Bruce got to play around with, as we used to call him, the little monster, right? Well, Clark is getting a chance to play around with his. I really loved that. You see that Clark was looking at that and going, oh, Bruce, I get it that he was a little monster, but you at least got to be with him.
Yeah.
Art in this, I really, really appreciated the choice of whoever thought to put together this artistic team. This was really a good-looking book, and the style matched. It gave it kind of a classic era look to it, in the right sort of way, yet feeling contemporary, if I'm making any sense at all. It was a really good art team.
And I think, and to go along with that, how dramatically different it is than the Aquaman story.
Yes.
I think that really helped each book really pop. You know, and I looked at it, I'll be honest with you, even though it's one book and there are two stories, I kind of did look at them as separate books even. They gave it such a good different, you know, differentiation and just that its own standalone, bam, look to it. I thought that for me was a brilliant idea. You know, and again, as you were talking about art, I'm just nodding and going, yes, yes, right along with it, because, you know, that one, again, the scene you saw with the cracked walls was wonderful, but then just, I loved, you know, the chapter 2, 14, when he's actually seeing the stuff that Darkseid's doing. Mm-hmm. The terror on John's face is absolutely brilliant. Just that whole sequence, you know, with, you know, everything, just the raw emotion that we're getting from all the parties. And whenever Superman looks like he's failed, whenever it's, you know, it's, you're right, I should have done more. You know, I loved just that look on his face. I was like, oh my God. It's, again, as I said, this story really just had you going from that really cool, happy, fun moments of father and son beating up Brainiac, then going playing catch with Crypto on Mars, to then this epic, like, oh my God, what is going on in this universe? Completely had me pulled in, saying, I want more stories of these people.
This is a Clark also that's less concerned about being part of the universe and more being concerned with being rooted at home. Because he's sitting there, the illogical question from Clark is like, if I had been more focused on home, would I have missed out on so much of John's life? Would this have ever happened at all? And it's a different sort of Clark with a different sort of take on it because of that piece. And being a little more envious of Batman being more grounded in Gotham, for example. It really, there's elements of this where I think it's him being a little envious of Batman. And,
big time. Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed that piece where John's lashing out and Clark's like, you know what, I get Bruce probably has some issues with Damian lashing out, but that's what kids do, right? And I want to be there for that. I want to be dad. I don't want Jor-El raising my kid. I want to be there with my kid. I want my kid questioning me, I was connecting with this because I was a brat at certain important times growing up with my father. And, I was so glad that, towards the end of my father's life, we became like really good friends. But I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm connecting with it going, you know what? I was a bratty little so-and-so from time to time, as far as that goes with my dad. But I have memories of Dad being there for that. Dad working through that with me. And I love how real this felt. How there was a connectability to that piece, both with Clark in understanding what he's experiencing here, and with John and what he was going through. It feels very three-dimensional, very human.
Well, and you go back to where Clark is, envious of Bruce and his relationship. Damien isn't Bruce's only son. You look at, Bruce's relationship with Dick, with Tim, with in Jason even.
Yep.
You can kind of see moments like that in this story.
Wow.
With Orion just beating the holy heck out of John to the point where he's about to kill him. And he's like, who are you? That's my son. With Clark flying in for the save. That, to me, had the whole remnants of the Joker beating Jason Todd to death. And Bruce would have loved to have rode in at the last minute and saved the day, and saved Jason, just like Clark did here. So it's kind of like those kind of connections, to all of Bruce's children.
Here's this page. I'm looking at a page right now that is really one of my favorites. Dad, I didn't mean I hear them. And Clark's like, come here. I can't stop hearing them. Shh. We'll talk about it in the morning. It'll look better in the morning sun. Yellow light has all sorts of power. You're a Kent. You've got to know that. It'll be okay, John. You're not alone. We're here. And again, they weren't there when he was going through that with Jor-El. They are there now. He gets to be a part of that. The chapters, you referenced that earlier. Boy, when we click into chapter 3, is that some wicked cool moments where we get to see him versus Orion? Father, talking about father and son, Superman and Darkseid, Orion and I almost called him Damien, Orion and John. And you get to see John. He has emotion. He has character. He has, from the inside, this intrinsic value of, I can't ignore this. I have to do something. Making the mistakes that we all make. You and I can both look back at our history and at various times in our life. I mean, you've known me for a long time. You've known strengths of mine. You've known times where I've been less than stellar. And, it's seeing those moments. We all can connect with those, right? I loved that. I loved when Superman showed up and he's like, he's my son. What a great visual that was in this sequence. It's you and I are both Superman fans, and I sometimes undersell myself as how much I've been a Superman fan because, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, when they came out and they were I remember seeing Superman the movie in the theater. Did you do that? It's funny, we've talked so much over the years about Christopher Reeve Superman. Did you see that in the theater?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. What an experience that was, right? A game changer, as far as I loved Superman. I've always seen, I've seen Superman as, on Super Friends. I saw the old George Reeves Superman TV show. But seeing that on the big screen was like an epic moment. So as a Superman fan, to see those moments was just, wow. This delivered a lot of emotion to it.
Oh, big time. And I loved how it plays out even further, whereas John just broke the treaty. So now Darkseid is going to be invading Earth, and father and son have to stand up and protect Earth together. And again, stuff that I lost, in my first read. I was just reading it as a good story, like, oh, this is kind of cool. But now you look back, knowing what is going on. They don't show us that year, but they show us in chapter 16 when John gets his super bite, where he's talking and going, hey. We had a brutal year, but you did a heck of a job. You did the impossible day after day. We're safe. The whole world's safe, at least for a bit, because of you. And I love just those moments where he's sitting there telling him, hey, this is, again, Clark having those moments that he never had with his son. Those moments when you can say, you're a true hero. You stepped up. You protected our home. And I just, again, I was like, man, that is awesome.
Do you remember the Corgi Supermobile? It's when we were kids.
Yes.
So like, I never understood, like, I remember just thinking it was super cool and never got to the point where I'm like, why does Superman even need this? But when I was looking at that bike, it immediately connected me with, and I always thought the Supermobile was way cool. Let me be super clear on that. Especially any of that Corgi diecast metal stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Batman fan coming off of the Batmobile. Do you remember the Spider-Man Doom Buggy?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are things as kids, you and I grew up with the same era, so that's why I'm throwing out a lot of this stuff. It seemed to be like every hero needed a vehicle, including Superman.
Yes.
The Supermobile had those fists that came out of it. I was like, oh, this is like way cool. Tell me that bike isn't reminiscent of what, like, a modern version of what was so cool about the Supermobile.
100%. I was thinking the exact same thing when I saw that. Yeah, and I was like, that is cool, man. And I agree. I'm like, holy, son, watch your language.
So, like, living through this, imagine you're being placed. Because I was thinking about this. It's funny after this, I was thinking to myself, because I always think about things like time travel and stuff like that. And you talk about the fact that, like, would I want to go back to high school? Would I want to, like, relive some of those years and things like that? Yes, but I wouldn't want to live there. You know, I'd love to go back for
visit moments in time. Yeah.
Like, you and I are both probably in the same place with this. I'd love to go back in time and visit my parents. You know, I mean, like, in your case, mom. My case, mom and dad. You know, I mean, those type of things. But I wouldn't want to give up life now to do that. But you can see for Superman, this is what's the carrot that's being dangled for him is like something that is a deep regret. And we all have them, right? You know, you have them, I have them. I love that this story is so personal because we all can connect with what Superman's going through here. He's having a chance to live in a world where his deepest regret no longer exists. And he can now, years that he was not a part of, he is a part of here. And he gets a chance, you know, to his kid's first ride. He gets to provide that to his kid. My dad did that for me. It was a beater and a half. It didn't have air. It didn't have like air conditioning. It didn't have heat.
Yes,
I had to have. I don't know if you and I were hanging out at that time, but I had a Chevy Malibu, a '79 Chevy Malibu. It had no heat. We went. My first like real event where I took friends to it was a Rolling Stones concert. It was the '89 Steel Wheels tour. We went to the concert in my Chevy Malibu. It had no heat. People are going, it's cold. When we're driving home, can you turn on the heat? No, but here's the blanket that's in the back that you can put on yourself. That was, I kid you not. I was driving home, and you know what it's like to get out of a concert. I'm rubbing the window to get that stuff out, but my dad provided that vehicle for me. It was like my first vehicle. That's something that I will always remember for the rest of my life. Superman didn't have that with his kid. Now he does in this world. How do you give that up? I know, and that's that's the carrot they're dangling before this guy.
Big time. I know. Again, one of the things I loved how in this story we go from these happy, wonderful moments to these oh my god moments. But even within the oh my god moments, there is still that celebration. Mm-hmm. You know, because you go into chapter, you know, when he's 17 and, you know, Clark's waiting for him to come home. Lois, I love how Lois she's just able to sleep through this or at least pretend to sleep through this because she went through this stuff with Clark. Mm-hmm. But now Clark's the nervous one, wondering when's he going to get home? What's going to happen here? Is he going to make it? And I loved how she was just calm until that moment when he's like, Lois, John, he's hurt. And just that, ching, her eyes just open up and she goes running down there. And again, just that epic moment of he's beaten bad, he's hurt, broken bones, but he's like, I did it. I beat him. I saved the kids. I was like, yes, John, you know? And you know, Clark is going, yes, that's my boy.
Here's a page that I think everybody goes through. It took me a long time to get here with my own father. My brother and my father had a lot more in common growing up. My father in later life, we kind of understood each other, but this page I really connected with on a personal level. Clark, he's not you, and you're not him. This is who he is. And I think my father and I'm saying mutual respect, where it's a two-way interchange of this particular scene. My father and I later in life got to this, and I count myself blessed that my father and I ended off this way, where like there was this moment of understanding, if I'm making any sense. I think everybody goes through this, some sooner rather than later. But I would say growing up, my father and I didn't understand each other. And we had a lot of issues due to that. And I'm not saying this to I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. But where I connected with this scene on a very personal level, it was like we hit a point where we had this moment. And if you're lucky enough to have this moment, it's something to hold on to. And my father and I ended really strong. And it was this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, what a really well-written story where it's something we all can relate to. You have moments like this because I know your relationship with your parents well enough to know that you like had this moment with mom and dad, probably at various times of your life, where you hit this point of understanding, right?
Oh, yeah.
How cool is that to hit that with your parents? Because it's that connecting thread, right? With my mom and me, it was earlier. With my dad and me, it was much later. If you're lucky, you hit that moment. Clark hits it here, and why would you want to give that up?
Yeah,
and that's what this is all about. It's not one singular thing. It is the singular thing of being able to live and with his kid and grow up with his kid, but at multiple points, it's pivotal moments of connection with his child that he completely missed. And you're like, it's an insurmountable treasure chest. How do you then sit there and go in your Clark Kent, I want to give this up and go back to the other world where I didn't have any of this? Wow, is this well written. Tom King is a genius.
Yeah. This is absolutely outstanding. I love how when John leaves at 18, to go fight Darkseid and to help the rest of the universe, his costume has changed. He's no longer wearing the Robin-esque costume. He's wearing a Superman costume. And he's going out into the universe to, fight the great darkness out there. And it was absolutely brilliant way to end this story. And again, you have this great moment between father and son, where he gets to tell him, hey, it's the one line I love is you carry all your parents' love with you. That will always get you through the worst of it. Like your love got me through, like it keeps getting me through all of it. I was just like, this, again, these father-son moments, and then goes on to where even on the last page of his story, he's telling Lois, I got to see him. Yep. I've got to see him grow into a man. I didn't miss any of this.
I wouldn't trade this for anything. Wow, was it so good. It was just an amazing, amazing story. And I didn't know this is what I wanted from these. Woof. Let's talk, before we talk about the Aquaman story, and let me just run through the creative team. If there's anything else we have to talk about Superman, let's do that. Aquaman has everything. Writer Brandon Thomas, artist Fico Acida. Or is it OSSIO? Is it OSIO? SSIO?
Yeah, it's an O.
Okay, apologies. Colors by Sebastian Cheng. Letters by Troy Pietri. Associate editor Chris Rosa. Editors Paul Kaminsky. And apologies, especially to Fico, for any name butchery there, because this has its own unique flavor. And we've been kind of talking a little bit organically about Aquaman in this process. Anything else about Superman we want to talk about before we jump heavy into Aquaman?
Anytime there's Clark with tear in his eye always gets me. Mm-hmm. And again, the art team, just where he's sitting there, when he's sitting there talking and he's got a tear in his eye, I'm telling you, my room got a little dusty. So, there was some dust. There was some lingering dust in the air here when I was reading this, just because that always, Clark and Bruce are the two who always get me if they ever have those moments.
So, here's one of the things with Aquaman, and this is where it's making me really question what's going on here. Are they shifting through worlds until it's the one that sticks? So, Aquaman right now is in this world where his mom's alive, and Mira's there, and his daughter's there, and everybody that would be around him. You know, like they have full and rich lives, and they're making their, you know, even Aqualad, our current Aqualad, or Aquaman, whatever you want to call him, and his father get along. Mm-hmm. You know, Black Manta. I mean, it's an interesting sort of where everything is working. He and Manta are buddies.
Yes.
In this scenario. So you're seeing things. So Aquaman's rebelling against it. So does it shift? And that's what I'm wondering, and I'm waiting to see. There's a part of me that's thinking, well, okay, fine. He's not buying into this. So is the world going to shift until he does buy into it, until he fights for it? Because Clark's fighting for it, right? Clark's like, I wouldn't give this up for anything. Clark is not there.
Clark is in Barry's world. You know, not Barry's world, but he's in the same mindset that Barry Allen's in.
Yes.
So Clark isn't giving his up. Arthur will give this up. Or Arthur is like suspecting something's not right. And I'll tell you, that's the thing I loved about this story, because I'm reading it going, this is a great story. I love how, you know, again, I'm thinking, okay, this is an alternate Earth. Oh, neat. You know, Arthur's mother and father both are alive. You know, their daughter's grown up. She's, you know, young woman. The Manta, everything cleared. Well, cleared with Manta, so there's no bad blood there. Jackson, that means Jackson's got a father. Everybody's having a happy ending. I even loved how, you know, you get just in the middle of this, you know, event, you know, in the parents renewing the vows, one of, you know, Andy's villains is going to try to sabotage the whole deal. You know, so there is still that trauma and that turmoil. Oh my God, what's going to happen? No, the hero saved the day. I absolutely love how they played this out. And then we get at the end, and Arthur's like, I've been dead before. I know this. This isn't right. This isn't real. I'm like, yes, oh my God. That's when I realized what was going on. So I immediately reread the Superman story with a whole new fresh set of eyes going, oh my God, this is awesome.
I love that side of Aquaman, too, where he's like, soon. We'll see if you can say the same. I've been dead before. I've come back. Soon we'll see if you can say the same. The rage of Aquaman, that's a Aquaman that I remember from the Peter David era, right? Where we're going to the roots of Aquaman kind of playing out. I mean, the Peter David era certainly is, you know, like, I guess, middle ground as far as in the history of Aquaman. But boy, pivotal. And I really loved how this is like, okay, we're gonna dangle multiple carrots in front of you, Arthur. He digs them. He's happy with all this, but he's rebelling against it, subconsciously rebelling against it. And there's a strength to Aquaman in that. I love that.
And I love that. I gotta give full credit to the line too, because, you know, he's like, I don't have everything yet. I don't have my hands around your throat. I'm like, oh,
yes.
I loved it. Again, you know, Aquaman can be a really cool character. You know, and right here, this is a great portrayal of this character, great portrayal of everything that's in this universe. I love how with Jesse he kept calling him, you know, Mr. Curry. And finally, as he's punching the villain, how many times have I told you, Jess? It's Arthur, you know, and he lays out the shapeshifter, you know, with one massive punch. Again, you're seeing I love when you see these moments when you get the nobility, you get the power, you get the father, you get all these this is a great, wonderful Aquaman story. And then you flip the page and you're like, no, he knows it's fake. He's coming for you. I'm like, yes, even cheered even more.
Superman knows it too. And what I'm saying is, I wouldn't give this up. Here's the thing. I wouldn't give this up for anything. He said it twice. So here's the thing. Subconsciously, he knows something's going on, but he's choosing to embrace it. There's a difference. And what I mean is, you know something's there, because why else would you say that? Why else would you say it twice, right? So subconsciously, he's like, but this is comfort food, right?
Yeah.
So the compelling part of both of these stories is, it's the piece that you said, does he? And I think you're supposed to be thinking about that right now, and I love it. I love that the stories are so different, where Aquaman's in your face slapping you going, oh, he knows, and they're going to throw something else at I'm convinced they're throwing something else at him to say, hey, what is it going to take to get you to be in the same place that Barry and Clark are in, right? This is Remember Final Crisis, where we knew very early what was going to happen, what was happening with Batman, but then the compelling part became, what does that mean? Right? This is doing that in a very unique and different way. This is what I was so hoping from these one-shots, and yet it's delivering so far beyond what I was expecting from these one-shots. This is a well-crafted book. I could not, rereading this was a pure joy. I reread this because, man, this was a great and fun read. I love when writers and artists are just having a good time. And this felt like a good time.
Well, and I'll tell you, just, again, another book where the art styling really helped the book.
Yeah.
We talked a lot on the Superman story, but same thing on this one. Because again, I loved the portrayal of Jessie in when she's in speed mode and she even pulls the bad guy in with her just to show everything, and then afterwards, just that great big party, everyone's laughing and dancing, and how they showed Jackson and Manta laughing, arms around each other, father and son having that moment, and then you go even to that one panel where it's everyone toasting, his parents, and everyone's got those big grins, and everyone's like just yay, happy, everything's wonderful. That really accentuates just that look on Arthur's face as he says, "I'm going to kill you." I'm going to have my hands around your throat. I was like, man, this is this one, the art read-through on this one was absolutely stellar, especially because I knew everything that was going on, so you really look at this. You really look into these moments with these heroes, with these villains, with these family interacting, just how they're trying to really sell this world to Arthur. And again, absolutely brilliant story, brilliant artwork.
Yeah, this is exactly what I love about comics. I love when artists and writers get, they work together, they get collaborative, they start playing with the medium, and they start trying to tell stories that are very unique and embrace the experience, right? Dark Crisis is becoming an experience. I love this, and I'm hoping people are embracing this, like people maybe who are lapsed fans or things like that have not stepped on board with DC in a while are saying, hey, I want to check out this Dark Crisis thing and see what it is. I hope they're checking out these one-shots. This as a standalone is worth reading as a standalone. It adds something pivotal to Dark Crisis. So if you picked up Dark Crisis and you didn't pick this one up and you're like, I'm not going to bother with the one-shots because of cost, I get that. This is worth it.
Yeah.
This is a worthwhile book. Great creative teams and all of it. And this is it was what I was hoping for without knowing what I was going to get. And
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I did not think this was what I was going to be getting.
No.
I was expecting, because again, I was thinking World Without Justice League. I was expecting stories of the Superman family dealing with Clark not being there. That's what I was because this is World Without Justice League Superman, so I was expecting this would be like a Supergirl story or a John Kent story or a Lois Lane story or something like that, where it was showing the world not dealing with not having Clark around. Well, this story they gave me instead is absolutely, I'm like, I love this even more.
Oh yes, this is so much better. This is, to your point, Jim, this is so much better because it's not that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it was not, it was, on some level it was what I expected. And other levels it was not. And it was just way, way cool.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Our next discussion is on Joker number 15. The writer is James Tynion IV. Pencils by Giuseppe Camuncoli. Inks by Cam Smith and Renzo Ruggiero. Colors by Arif Paranto. Letters by Tom Napolitano. Cover by Camuncoli, Smith, and Paranto. Variant cover by Gillian Marsh, Dyke Ruan, and Brian Bollard. Editor is Dave Wielgos. Assistant editor is Ben Abernathy. Group editor is Chris Conroy. And, of course, Batman was created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger.
Did you say Brian Bollard?
Boland.
Yes.
I probably did say that.
And I'm only going to say that just because I love Brian Boland. And I butchered names too, so I'm really not throwing you under the bus with that. I'm so guilty of doing that on this show. And Brian Boland is somebody that I just absolutely love. This is a series, I don't know how you read this one, Jim. I'm a huge fan of the Joker. I'm a huge fan of Jim Gordon. Batman universe in general. That's my linchpin. That's what got me into comics. So it's interesting. There's two characters that got me into comics growing up. It was Spider-Man and it was Batman. And if obviously people that are longtime listeners know that. But they are the two ones that growing up in the 70s, and they were really media based. It was the Batman 66 show for me and the Spider-Man 60s cartoon reruns. Because I was born in 71, like, you were 70. Were you 70 or 71?
I'm 71.
Yeah, you and I are in the same. We're representing. Characters like the Joker, an easy one for me to read, right? I read this one in the strangest way. It was like in segments of binge reading, where this is a book that, like, got stockpiled, not because I wasn't enjoying it. It was because I would be reading it 3 and 4 issues at a time because I got behind on reading. I gotta say, the experience of reading this book was so terrific because of that. I liked reading 3 and 4 issues of this at a time. I don't know if you had that experience with this book, but that was how I read this one. What a great, great series this was. And I think there's going to be a season 2 of this. I thought I was hearing that was the intention, that there's going to be season 2 of The Joker. This wraps up just fine, and if there isn't, I'm fine with this being a standalone. But I think you were the one that suggested, like, hey, can we do The Joker? And I'm so glad you did, because the wrap-up of this was what a great series, and so satisfying. It has great moments with the Joker, great moments with Jim Gordon, great moments with Batman, great moments with Bluebird, great moments with Punchline. I'm underselling. Barbara Gordon has great moments in this. James Jr. has some great moments in this. They really do a lot with this series, and I applaud the creative team. James Tynion IV, and if I'm butchering his last name, which I'm not entirely sure, it's Tynion or Tynion. I say that wanting to get it right, knowing that I'm probably not, maybe with either pronunciation. I know he's going off to creator of own work, and we were just talking about The Nice House on the Lake, which is done by him, which I'm well caught up on, and I think is fantastic. This is a writer that's going on to creator of own work. I will follow.
Yeah.
Because of Detective Comics, because of the Joker, and so much more. I'm underselling this terrific writer. This is a great, great book. 15 wraps up and does this in such a way that, when do you ever hear of a 15-issue series, right?
Yes.
This needed to be a 15-issue series, and it was so good.
Oh, big time. Big time. And I'll tell you, he's on my list now. I've got a list of writers who, that no matter what they're doing, I follow. He is now on that list. I picked up a horror book. I'm not a big horror fan. You're a horror fan. I'm not. I picked it up because he wrote it.
It's so good.
Out, solely because he wrote it, I picked it up.
Are you talking Nice House on the Lake? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So, not being a horror fan, what you're talking about right now, you're going to dig it.
Yeah.
And I can say that to you as a friend, saying I know you well enough to know what you like and what you really don't like about it. You're going to dig The Nice House on the Lake. I binge read that as well. And when I say binge read, from 1 straight on through to the current issue. Boy, does that read really well. This is a writer. I love what you're saying right now. This is a writer that's become a writer for me to watch. I will follow this writer wherever he goes because he's delivering this kind of storytelling.
Yes, and he delivers this kind of storytelling every single time.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons that Gail Simone, Jeff Johns, James Tynion IV, right there. That's those 3 right there are on that list of mine. They are at that level where every single time I've read a story by them, I've said, dang, this is amazing. I've loved every little bit of it. And like my reading of the Joker, we did Joker issue 1 for the show. So I, read that and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. So I read like 2 and 3, and then the world started getting crazy and I started stockpiling, and so I had like a bunch of of issues to read, stockpiled, like, and I got to sit down and find time to do this. And I'm like, let me just start over again, redo issue 1.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I started issue 1, and it was issue 1 through 10. I read in one sitting, and I mean one sitting. Yeah. I just kept going like, oh, this is kind of neat. This is kind of neat, It was like, I don't remember where I was, but I had some free time, and I was just reading one issue after another, and I was like, oh my god, And then I kept up on it because once, so from 10 through to 15, I was up to date on it. But I had that massive, just that complete read through. I was like, this is awesome, And it again, as the story, the way he built the story, the way it's like just that layering of the story being told, I was like, this is outstanding. And then, with 14, with kind of having the cliffhanger of what happened to the Joker, what did Gordon do? I was like, I remember when I read, I was like, no, I gotta know, And you get 15, and I loved how the pacing on this was.
Yes.
With again, it was Batman, and Gordon having a conversation, and of anybody in this universe that Bruce will give that time to, it is Gordon. Yep. It is Gordon giving him the chance to explain what happened, to tell the story the way he wants to tell it. Bruce isn't going to interrupt him, isn't going to rush him because of that respect these two have. And I loved how this thing played out. Again, this story, it's called The Joker, but for me, it really could have been called Gordon. And if there's a chapter 2, I would love him to call it Gordon instead of Joker, and have it be a continuation of this, because this really is told from Gordon's perspective. He's the narrative. He's the main instrument behind all of the story. So, but they called it The Joker, and again, it made sense, and it was a good. I'm not knocking that, but for me, you gotta love these great Jim Gordon stories. And I was like, man, this for me, this was a fabulous Joker story. This is a fabulous Gordon, Barb, Bruce, you name it. Heck, even Bane and and Vengeance.
Yep.
I'm like, come on, he fixed Bane. Once again, Bane is awesome.
It's interesting you say fixed Bane, because I think the problem with Bane that I've had over the years is Nightfall was a story. Did you read Nightfall in real time when it came out, or was that something you read after the fact?
That was after the fact.
Okay, which I figured was the case. But my reason for that is I read Nightfall in real time, and Bane, I remember being one of those villains that was gripping, right? Because there's a psychological component to Bane. You can do Bane as the brute, but you're missing the complexity of Bane, right? The multifaceted nature of Bane. Yes, there's Venom. Yes, there's the fact that makes him super strong and all that. But if you take out the strategery of Bane, and yes, I'm using your strategery, because it's evil. I think strategery is evil. But what works with Bane in that particular moment is the fact that you get to see a Bane that set up Batman to fail. That broke down Batman over time, set him to the point where he was vulnerable and then attacked him, right?
Yep.
So that guy has sometimes been incredibly well represented in comics. There's been other times in both comics and other media where they just got him wrong. This is a story that just got him right.
Yes,
so good. And Vengeance was a great concept, right?
Yes. Well, come on. I love this, the whole notion of, the notion of this secret society that gives like a safe haven for villains.
Yeah.
That itself is a brilliant concept, but you add to the little twist to it where they were doing that to get DNA samples and to maybe let's clone these villains, but not let's clone them. Let's clone them and make them so we can control them. Again, it added to a whole other level of evil secret society that's out there. I was like, this is brilliant. Again, and it was something that played out through throughout multiple issues, and then even at the end here, where hearing Gordon explain to Bruce what was going on, I was like, man, again, it's an absolute brilliant ending to the story, because we saw it all laid out. We saw this happening, and this, and I don't want to call this a repetition of what was done. This is Gordon's perspective on it, Gordon's eyes on it, Gordon's opinion of it. And it's like, I love how they did that, where it is a recap, but they did it, in such a different way that it didn't feel like, oh, they're just regurgitating the same story. They've already told us. No, we're now getting Gordon's take on it. We're getting him explaining it to Bruce, and we're getting Bruce's opinion. I was like, it was an absolute brilliant way to handle it. It's kind of like how sometimes when you get an origin story, where the origin, and how do you tell the origin story without just going, and this is why he's Batman, he watched his mother and father die,
right.
This is why he's Superman, the planet was destroyed. No, you got to have a different way to tell it. So I love how they did that, where they recapped what happened in the story, but did it in a way that I was gripped, I was glued to the page going, okay, what's going on, this is awesome.
And that's great. I mean, your enthusiasm off that is exactly what I felt from this story, too. The thing that I loved is we got to see in this particular issue Batman and Gordon through different eras, right? Seeing Jim Gordon and Batman meeting in an earlier era where Batman had the black and the initial, early costume that didn't have quite as much armor that we're used to in some of the later ones. Jim Gordon's a much younger Jim Gordon. He's still smoking the pipe at that point in time. There's something really unique about him. Them talking about the Joker. Both of their impression about the Joker, where Jim's very dismissive of him as just being another cartoony character that's coming on the scene, and Bruce being like, I've encountered him before. This is something more. I loved that interchange between the two of them. The shield of Batman, the black versus the yellow and black. Gordon acknowledging it at some point in time in the story, I thought was really, really a cool thing the cool thing, too, where he's like, it's cool to see you back in that again because it takes me back to a gentler time, a simpler time, referencing that. I loved Gordon expressing that. That's where, we talk about why does continuity important to comic fans? It's history. It's characters being able to reference that history. Talking about the fact that was a gentler time, that means Jim Gordon lived in that like we did as fans when we read it. But it isn't that time anymore. And reminiscing gives us a chance to, as a fans, connect with the character and reminisce with them. And that was something this story did really, really well, and I thought that was a smart writing choice.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And again, I do love how Bruce is giving Gordon the respect he's earned.
Yep.
And that, and it was funny because even you think back to, Gordon's got 2 glasses of whiskey poured. One's for him, one's for Bruce. Now, Batman never is taking it. He's never taken the drink, but he still pours in the glass.
Yep.
I like that. And then even...
Because that's his friend. Wait, and I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. It's more of, and please take off after this. But I'm with you. That sequence worked so well because whether or not he's going to take it, it doesn't matter if he takes it or not. Jim is treating him with respect because he's asking and demanding it. Like, you and I have been through a lot together. I'm asking you for something right now in how you're going to listen to me that I deserve. I'm going to give you the same respect that I feel you deserve in this moment. And it's something it's really pivotal in that moment that only can happen between Batman and Gordon in that unique session. I'm glad you're pointing this out because it struck me too. And I love seeing it from your lens.
And the one thing about that I really liked was that he already poured the drink.
Yep.
A lot of times when you're interacting with someone, you're like, hey, you want a drink? Nah, I'm fine. And you're offering knowing they're going to say no. 9 times out of 10, you offer somebody who's over at your house a drink, they'll probably say, nah, I'm good.
Yep.
Gordon isn't even asking. He's simply just pouring it. If he wants it, he'll grab it. And I thought that for me was a really neat moment. And it was a little subtle thing that I was like, I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then they immediately after that, Gordon's like, hey, let's go to the rooftop. I'm more honest on the rooftop. And I love that, again, just this nature of these two. Again, how many times they've met on the roof, how many times they had that he would have that conversation, that he would have that comfort. And they were like, okay. And Bruce isn't arguing with him, isn't fighting him on it. He's not doing his, I'm Batman, tell me now kind of stuff. No, this is his friend. He's like, lead the way. And it was just a great characterization of these two, their friendship. And again, I love seeing these two together.
So one of the things that I really enjoy as I'm looking at this is we get this recap of the events that have happened. And I really appreciate the fact that this recap happened here. Because in issue 15 of a miniseries like this, you're not doing this for new readers, right? Because who's picking up issue 15 as their starting point for this? This is really, if you've been reading the story, even if you caught all of this along the way, it's important to recap this from Gordon's perspective. Because he's telling Bruce now, and he's explaining it to Bruce with his own spin on it, which is something we did not get for these events before. This was a very good storytelling choice as far as wrapping things up and reminding us of events that really we needed to know in order to get to the end of this story, which is unique.
Yes, and I absolutely love that. And even, just again, laying who these people are, who the powers are, what happened with Bane, what happened with Vengeance, what happened with the Court of Owls. And they didn't go too heavy, they didn't go too long. They gave enough just to keep the story going. But again, it's Gordon's perspective on this. And again, it's Gordon letting Bruce know what happened. He's given him the full situation report, saying this is everything that happened.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought that was something that was important, especially the Bane story, right? Because it explained to us, we saw a lot happen with Bane.
Yeah.
And it brings us up to speed and reminds us of why Bane is available, why Bane is around, and when Gordon first encountered him, and what that looked like. Recaps sometimes are not for new readers. Recaps are sometimes for readers where it's like, we're summing up the story, and we're going to Cliff Notes the events, but Cliff Notes them with a very, very specific intention. And this is good writing. This is really, really good writing.
I love the sequence with Barbara and James Jr.
Oh, was that so good?
Outstanding.
And Cassandra. I've got to throw Cassandra in there because it's really important.
Yeah, big time. And again, because this was another one of those things where last issue they left it. They left it hanging there. We didn't know what was going to happen, and so they gave us a couple pages explaining how Barbara survived, what Barbara did, and I love Bullock in this. He's like, Bullock, Harvey, you got a utility knife? Yeah, you want me to try to stab him? No, I think my dad would be really upset if I got you killed. Hand it over. I love just again great Barbara moments where she's like, she is Batgirl. Now Cassandra's there to fight off the talent, perfect usage of her. But I love just again, Barbara being Barbara, cutting off the mask so we see the rotting face, and then breaking the glass to drop the temperature down in the plane to take out the talent, to take out James Jr. It was just again wonderful story being told. And we know he does really great Talon stories because he did a great Talon series. So he understands the Court of Owls. He understands the Talons. And obviously he understands the Bat family. So this was, again, another one of those brilliant sequences that I'm so glad we got to see. And, they took the time to give us this ending story, even though James Jr.'s story is not completely over yet. We still got to figure out how they're going to save him, but they're working on it.
Terrific editor's note.
Going to.
Terrific editor's note, too, where they reference the Talon series, so that way, if you didn't read it, this is what you want to look at if you want more details.
Yes.
I think that's really important in comics to put in editor's notes because there's a lot of series out there. Point people at something that they may have missed. I really loved the sequence with Joker and Gordon, or sequences with Joker and Gordon, where Joker's aware of the fact that this dude may shoot me.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's funny that, his ability to mess with people. It's like, dude, you want to kill me right now? I kind of win if you do. Because what a way to go out. I wrecked you. if I go out that way, I wrecked you. And Joker is like, I think there's a self-preservation aspect to Joker that he often underplays. But yet there's that part of him that does find it fascinating that I can get in your head and psychologically mess with you to the point that where you may actually shoot me. You may kill me. You may consider it and hit me in the arm. I'll find that funny too. The cannibals piece in this adds a whole other layer to it. This book was twisted enough without the cannibals. Adding the cannibals in and a reason that they are so angry with him, they eat people normally. They want to like eat him and savor it.
Yes, they had the whole plan for, it was just going to be this big party where they were all going to feast on the Joker. They're going to feast on the clown. They're going to teach him his lesson. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was reading that going, dude, you have no chance. One, the name of the series was The Joker, but two, it's the Joker. This guy had no shot at it. And I loved how he plays him, how he just completely, it's just complete mind manipulation over him. And I absolutely love these Joker moments. These are those things where you have a funny bit going on, but it doesn't take away anything of the seriousness of the character. It doesn't take away anything seriousness of the moment of this. Because Joker is a character that you could do over the top too much camp and lose it. You know, just little funny bits about it. It's like, I don't taste good. I'm full of chemicals. Preservatives aren't good for you. You know, just at little moments, and you just see the guy just raging to the point where, you know, and you knew it was coming. Gordon right cross and dropped him, and then even continuing just the funny lines. He's like, "My uncle's an old man." Well, so am I. You know, little funny bits never took away any seriousness, any moment of this. And again, absolutely brilliant stuff here with Joker and Gordon and just their relationship.
The Bruce and Jim Gordon sequences, I mean, you and I are lucky enough over the years that we've made this level of friendship, right? Not just between you and me, but we have multiple people in our lives that we're lucky enough to say that they're this person, right? I love when you see, we've had friends of ours that have over the years, I think, disappointed us. Or we've questioned, right or wrong. You know, there's been times where we've been wrong, right? You know, I know enough of the history of our friends that we're in that place, right? And we can, you know, maybe put ourselves in certain places relating to that. I loved how natural that felt. Like, Jim Gordon and Bruce Wayne work together when you really feel the level of history between them, the friendship between them. Because we're lucky enough that not only are we friends on this level, but we have that with other people. That's the part where a good writer knows how to play that in a place where that's where these characters also feel real. Their relationship feels real. Where he's telling that story to Bruce before we get to the actual action taking place in front of us, you get to see the narrative between the two of them. That choice of flipping between both was absolutely handled in a way that I don't think they could have done better. That was a great part of this issue.
Well, and again, like the moment where Gordon's admitting that how he is jealous of how Bruce and how his daughter still has that hunger, still has that fire in their belly, you know, and he wishes he still had that. And I loved how Bruce was like, you know, was like, no, I understand, tries to, you know, to sympathize. He's like, no, you really don't. You still have the fire. I don't. And just getting that realization of who he is, what kind of man he is a statement of Jim Gordon, is a statement of, you know, what, you know, he knows who he is, you know, and he knows one day he may get back to that. And I love how he talks about how maybe one day I'll wake up, march back down to GCPD and go back and get back the man I was. But right now, this other fight makes more sense to me. And I love just that moment of, yes, we may get Commissioner Gordon back. Maybe not, but maybe we will. And that was something I love, just that again, that interpersonal dialogue, the confidence these two have with each other, that they're that open with each other. It always makes me want to know, does he know it's Bruce? Does he flat out know, and he's just never going to admit it? I always, it's moments like these when you get this close friendship, this true friendship between these two. It always makes me wonder, because I remember back to when the story with the one disaster, I can't think of it now, where Bruce drops the mask and Gordon looks away. He's like, if I wanted to know, I would know. I need you to keep the mask on. I can't have that. I always go back to that. I always wonder, did Gordon know already before that?
Yeah, and that's a piece where I think that's always the mystery, and the fact that mystery, the mystery of what Jim Gordon knows and what he doesn't know. Jim is very good at keeping that close to his vest in a wide variety of situations, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the intrigue of Jim Gordon, is that he's a lot smarter than he's ever given credit for. And I think some of that's deliberate, right? Hold that information close, reveal it only when it is of the greatest benefit. And in some cases, never reveal it, because it doesn't need to be revealed. The end result is fine in and of itself. And that's a Jim Gordon piece.
And you think back to the beginning, I think it was issue 1 of this series, where, when Bruce is talking to Gordon and Oracle is on the line, and Gordon's like, oh, come on, Batman. My daughter just doesn't want me to go. And he reveals he knows that Oracle is Barbara. And it was I love that sequence, because in the inner dialogue, Gordon's thinking right now, he's wondering, what do I know? And it was his little edge he had over Batman. His edge he had over his daughter. He picked the perfect time to play that card, saying he knows she was Batgirl. He knows she's Oracle. And it was absolutely brilliantly played. And part of me was expecting him to play a similar card here. I'm glad they didn't do it, because the way this played out was absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't change a single thing on it. But I remember when I was reading this, especially when he said, hey, let's go up to the rooftop. I remember thinking, is he going to let Bruce know he knows? Is that going to be the big reveal on this? And I'm glad they didn't do it. As I said, I loved how this played out. But the fact that did enter my head was a really cool notion.
Dangle the carrot. Yep. You don't necessarily need to give us the carrot.
Right.
Cressida's death was something that I thought was really cool, because you had this sequence with Jim and the Joker where the Joker's teasing that he might shoot Gordon, and Gordon's like, if you're going to kill me, you would have done it already. And Joker agrees with it. But then he's like, but I did say somebody needs to die, and Cressida dies. Cressida's shot. Cressida's killed. It's very much a Joker sequence of events where Joker gets what he wants, but does it, of course, as always, his way. I thought that was a great sequence of events.
And I love the art sequence. Because it goes back to the Killing Joke look.
Yep.
On his face when he kills her. Going right back to when he shot Barbara. It was absolutely brilliant artwork. And I laughed when she's like, my phone. Give me my phone. He's like, what? We got to get you to the hospital. She pays him. I thought that for me was a really neat little thing where she's like, hey, can't get him the full amount, but it's enough to keep the fight going. Take him down. And I was like, yes. So and for right there, that for me was like, that's when I was like, chapter 2, or season 2 is Gordon. It's Gordon going after the organization. It's Gordon going after them. And I'm like, man, this is outstanding.
I love Gordon just having the chance to kind of finally rest and kind of establish what his life's going to be moving forward. He's not coming back to Gotham PD, at least right now. He's trying to figure out who he is and what his motivation is now. And I'm glad this story didn't end in the trite kind of Gordon's now going to be taking over the Gotham PD again. I want him to eventually. I think that's kind of a geek. Eventually Jim Gordon's got to be the head of the Gotham Police Department again. But he's not ready to get there yet. And I liked the choice a great deal.
Yeah, and I did love seeing the end where he doesn't hear laughter anymore.
Yes.
That for me, I'm so glad it ended on that. 100%. Like you, I do want to see him eventually going back to the Gotham, but I like the fact that he has this mission now. He's going to be with Harvey, but he's going to be taking down this organization because, again, we're seeing the organization isn't stupid. they're, they're still going to take some work to take it down, and Gordon's going to be the one to help do that. So I 100% want to read that story of Gordon taking down the thing. But I'm so happy it ended with just seeing him laying down and just those final words. I don't hear the laughter anymore. Because that was a huge piece throughout this, how we never really realized how much the Joker broke him. We had that great moment in Killing Joke where he tells Batman, "Bring him in, don't kill him." He was like showing that defining moment of there's only three lights. That defining moment of you didn't get me, you didn't break me. And I loved seeing that it really did break him, but he kept it hidden the entire time. And Joker, being the Joker, knows he broke Gordon. He knows that Gordon was lying, that Gordon was putting on a fake smile throughout it. Well, now Gordon's not putting on a fake smile anymore. He's actually defeated it. He's pushed through it. He's actually survived it. And I'm like, that for me, I was like, yes! I absolutely cheered throughout reading this book. Next up, Punchline Finale. The writers are Sam Johns and James Tynion IV. Art and colors by Sweeney Boo. Letters by Becca Carey, and editor is Dave Wheelgoes. And oh my God, again, another absolutely love this ending.
I like that it had a very digital feel to it, if you know what I mean by that. I liked that it was, again, similar to what we were talking about in the Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Superman story, how the different art styles were really appropriate. I felt the different art styles were incredibly appropriate here because you're dealing with a Punchline that is using social media, that is using the internet, using all those pieces to her advantage, right? I also liked seeing Bluebird. Bluebird's a character that kind of got lost for a while, and I was glad to see her featured so prominently in this because she was a character concept that I always dug, and I really appreciated that, let's dust that one off and bring it in because it's very current, and certainly as a adversary for Punchline, certainly fits. And I really loved that aspect of this series.
Oh, big time. Yeah, and again, one of the things I loved about this whole Punchline story going on is how realistic it does feel.
Yep.
Think about just modern society. I 100% could see how this played out, where she uses social media. She uses, just uses the internet against itself to get her off of murder. She's been found not guilty, even beyond just, charges dropped or anything. Innocent. So that means they can't charge her for any of that stuff that she did, during the Joker Wars. She's 100% free and clear of it. If she were to go out and say, yes, I killed all those people, she is 100% free and clear, because of the double jeopardy laws. I loved how she completely played the system. She manipulates the thing. And even throughout this issue, when you think she's done with the game, oh no, she's still going on. She's still playing Bluebird. She's 100% playing the system still. And again, it's laying groundwork for her own, for the next series, for the Punchline series coming up. But it absolutely 100% fit and felt perfect towards society, but also towards this character. I love her, absolutely love just the fact that she's not, and they really stress this in Joker Wars, but even in this, the add-on series, or the backup series, especially stressed, she's not the Joker henchman. She's not Harley Quinn. She is her own villain. She's an equal to the Joker. She's got her own level of evil going on here, and it's, again, absolutely brilliant.
She also doesn't feel like a lame attempt to try and recreate Harley Quinn. Punchline and Harley Quinn are... You can understand how both of them were drawn to the Joker, but because they're such unique individuals, they're drawn to that in a very, very different way. I loved that about this continuing story. I think it further reiterates that point. I love when she pulled out Bluebird's nose ring.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I chuckled at that one.
I did too.
I was like, yeah, actually, that's a solid target. It's one of the reasons why, a lot of people, in the combat world don't wear things that can be ripped out. You don't wear earrings. You don't wear, and like law enforcement a lot of times won't have rings on their finger because if you ever get into physical scrape, you don't want to have that metal on your hand that could bang on, either on somebody or, break your own finger. Same thing can be said with the earrings, eye rings, nose rings, all of those. Any type of ring that can be ripped out in a fight, well, there you go. It can happen. And something else about her I love? She's not a carbon copy, let's reboot, relaunch the Joker. Because she very easily could have been that as well. Hey, let's have a female Joker. Let's flip the script here. She's not, female Joker. She, again, is her own villain. She's got similar power sets, similar kind of mind, games, and similar, strategery, but she's not another Joker. She is Punchline. And I love that they did give plenty of time and plenty of build of this character so she is her own person.
Her use of social media was something I thought was really great, where, the cliffhanger of this one is, okay, you kind of won, Bluebird, but did you?
Yeah.
And here's how I'm gone viral now, and how people are really looking at me in a way that I have convinced social media, and it's very contemporary, right? Manipulation of social media to be able to play with agendas, and this is, take politics out of it, right? No matter which way you lean or anything like that, social media and overall internet is driving a lot of thought process nowadays, right? And I think, the more intelligent you get, the more you kind of question all of it, right?
Yeah.
But Punchline's basically saying, and it's a statement on society, a lot of people aren't. Yep. And I'm certainly going to take advantage of that in that moment. I loved that. I loved how contemporary, and that's a separation from her and Joker, her and Harley Quinn, who are both valid characters, but we're going to look at this story 10 years from now, right? You come back and you go, well, geez, let's talk about a little bit about Punchline. Let's take a look at Punchline. I remember that era. I lived through that era. There are going to be people 10 years from now who are reading comics that were too young to understand the era and what was going on. Oh, you hope. You hope things have progressed where you can look back at this and go, this was isolated to an era, right? I love how contemporary this feels, because that's when comics are at their best. You and I have read enough stories on this podcast that have been ones that you haven't read back in the 80s or earlier, for example, and they feel like they're from that time, right?
Yep.
This is going to feel like it's from this time. This is why, when we sit there and fight and go, comics have got to continue to exist beyond that, it's so much fun to read stories that are set in this medium and then jump back to them years later and go, oh, wow, does that feel like an era?
Oh, big time. Yeah, and again, this character, this villain, this is hers.
Yep.
And I 100%, I'm completely all in on the Punchline this fall. Hers, and I don't know if it's a limited series or if it's a ongoing or what they're doing.
It's a limited series.
It's a limited, but
no, wait. And let me clarify. I'm making an assumption there, but I'm looking at Punchline, the Gotham game. My feeling is if it was an ongoing series, it'd be called just Punchline.
Right. And I agree. I think that's my mind was it was going to be a limited series, but again. From Joker War, I was like, oh, Punchline, that'd be kind of a neat thing. Then having her in this and playing out and just this, again, continuing development of this character has been absolutely wonderful. I'm like, I want to see what happens next. I want to see more Punchline. And again, Bluebird is an absolute brilliant, hero to fight the villain because of her brother's personal connection to Punchline. And the fact that Punchline knows who Bluebird is. So it's, you run into that same kind of thing where the Joker knows Batman's secret identity. She knows Punchline's secret identity. So it adds to, there's a lot of comparisons, but they really do have it personalized, so it's, again, brilliant job of that balance of, we're not just rehashing an old story. We're not just modernizing an old story. We're telling you something new. We're telling you something fresh, but it's got a comfort level because we understand these kind of characters. We understand the psychotic killer. We understand the determined vigilante who it's kind of a personal war for them. You know, so whereas there was a lot of similarities, I never felt redundancy. I never felt, okay, just another Joker story. No, this is a punchline story. And that's the thing I absolutely loved about this.
I couldn't agree more. This was exactly, I wouldn't say it's exactly what I hoped for. It was, I didn't know what I was looking for with this. And I love the way that this all played out. It was really, really good stuff. What a satisfying ending for this Joker concept as a series. I didn't know what, I don't know if this was meant to be a continual ongoing, and then because of James Tynion going off and doing creator-owned, that changed things. I don't know. I don't care. What I care about is they gave us a satisfying ending with issue 15. Yeah. Applause to everybody involved, writing and art team on both the main story and the backup story. I'm loving the use of backup stories in comics. And I'm glad to see that they're being used as an opportunity to tell stories with characters that maybe couldn't carry, or there's concerns about them carrying a main series, and it's just expanding the universe for me. This was really, really good.
Yeah, amen.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster.
How you doing, Sean? Again, this is Rasul. You guys talked about the disappearance of comics. So this is what my State of the Union is with this. Mark Waid recently just did an interview, and he also said what Jim said. This will end when there will be comics around. What he said is that now comic books are going to have to take a form like manga. Right now with television, people wants to binge everything. He said the same thing applies to comic books. No one wants to hardly read the single floppy except the older generation, probably 40 years of age and up. That's how he was breaking it down. Okay, you can see now the corporate at both companies. Hardly anybody that's actually deal with comics is actually running the business. So really, no one really knows what they're really doing. They just swinging. DC knows Batman is hot, so you make a bunch of Batman books. Marvel knows Spider-Man is hot. You make a bunch of Spider-Man books. Well, my other point is about multiple titles with books. Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Avengers, X-Men all have to have more than one book. Spider-Man in the 70s had Marvel Team Up, Spectacular Spider-Man. He had even the Super Spider stories. Superman had DC Comics Present, Superman Action Comics, DC Comics Present, World Finest. Batman had Detective. He had Batman Family. He had Brave and the Bold. And you see where I'm getting at. Those titles have to have multiple titles. X-Men right now probably have about 19 books. So if you're trying to get into that universe, you definitely need to be doing it digital because you cannot afford to buy all those books unless you have hit the lotto. And my point is that if comic book companies are trying to get a new title established, it's always been said a book needs about 16 to 20 months for a book to get an audience. If you're trying to start an ongoing title and you don't see any growth by the fifth issue and you cancel it, you're not giving the book any chance. So it hasn't reached an audience yet. DC does this better than Marvel as far as letting the book stretch as they did with the New Age of Heroes. Speaking of like Black Adam, if you go to this new podcast called DC Standoff, they had the writer of Black Adam. He said he wants the book to be ongoing. He said he has hundreds of stories to tell, but DC only giving him 12 issues. Now, if it sells well, they may give him more time. But as you see, the book after the first issue is amazing. So hopefully the book will get a long run, but right now it's scheduled for 12. So if these companies are not going to give a book for 16 to 20 months to grow, we're never going to have anything. And that's why DC and Marvel are putting out excessive Batman titles because they sell and excessive DC titles because they sell. Example, all of the new recent media series like Brave and the Bold, One Star Squadron sells less than any so-called low Batman miniseries. I mean, any Batman. It's well below that. So when they see these numbers, DC are going to keep putting out the Batman books. It's just mathematics. So if people are not getting up and buying this stuff, we're not going to see new titles. Like with Batman, I actually want to see a Max Malone title. I've been wanting that for years as a Batman book, as him undercover. I think that would be a new type of deal for Batman, and I think it's something that needs to be shown in comic books. And with the Max Malone title, I think that can get a new genre of people that actually start really getting into more Batman books. And the last thing I'll say is that I want the comic books to stay around, but even myself as a preeminent floppy reader, I've gotten used to the digital. Actually, I was on a treadmill and I was trying to turn the pages on a digital platform like I had a floppy in my hand. So I'm actually been merged them together, and now they're becoming almost synonymous with one another. I just don't matter which one I'm reading, but I actually can. If they go all digital, I wouldn't, go jump off a bridge about it. I would just stay with the digital books, but I hope the print stay around because I don't know what comic shops would do. I know a lot of comic shops do a lot of gaming inside. My comic shop in Minneapolis, it does a lot of gaming. And most of the comic shops that I live at down here in Kentucky, in southern Indiana, is all host gaming. So that's what's keeping them alive, the Pokemon cards, the Magic cards. So comic book shops will always be around. In the back market will actually come back if the print run actually stopped and it just go all digital. They'll still maintain, but it just won't be a lot of viability if there isn't any new books to the store. So what Mark Wade said, this industry is going to have to go to trade paperback, because when I go to Books A Million, it's tens of kids in there buying manga by the form, and people got to understand comic books are growing. It's just not in the superhero genre. It's the manga and all that stuff that's growing in the books that DC is putting out. Those books are growing. It's just not the superhero set. And have you seen what DC's print run with comic books on a stand is very low. I'm collecting about less than 19 titles. That's never been the case with DC. I was always in the 40s and 50s. But I actually like that because it gives fans a time to get a lot of titles from DC when they have that print run that low. Only people that hate Batman wants to not see that many Batman titles, but Batman sells, so they're going to keep putting them out. And I don't have no problem with the Batman book. The Batman Urban Legends book is good. The Robin book is good. I think Robin will be coming to an end soon, but they can always merge him back into the Urban Legends book. And that's what we need. We need more heavy stock books with different characters, which is all in the same family. Like Superman probably need to have a Urban Legends type book also merged together, so that way you could have Supergirl, Chanel if his book doesn't make it, other super people from the Superman family. That's what we need in comic books. They're going to have to switch to that format, and soon I would be willing to pay $6 or $7 for a giant Green Lantern book that's 80 pages every month if they did it, or every 7-8 times a year. That's what the comic book industry needs, and someone needs to look into this. You guys have a great day. Your podcast is amazing, and you guys keep on raging, and I'm going to keep on listening. You guys, again, great job.
Yeah, I think comics are always going to be around in some format, and I think what he's talking about is really interesting. I think there's a lot of speculation right now. We do it on our podcast all the time as far as what is the future of comics. And I don't think there's the singleton answer to that, right? I think they're experimenting right now with what, and it's been throughout my entire life, right? What comics are now is very different than what they were in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. You can look at each of those eras, and comics were something very different based on what was going on at that time. There was an era of the speculators market where everything had like 45 different covers, and some of them were foil, some of them were not, and that was, there were, and you know what I'm talking about, the era where that piece happened. It's critical for comics to evolve, and we as fans, longtime fans, have a lot of discomfort there because the question becomes, are comics going to still be around? And that's always the big worry. And I'm of that ilk where I worry about the fate of comics because I need them. I mean, it's an important hobby to me. And I need the talent to be able to make money. And I say that writers and artists, I want the top tier creative talent to be able to make a living in this medium, because that's the only way that comics are going to continue to exist, right? If there's talent that are excited, both old talent, because I'll use an example. Chris Claremont's doing a new Gambit miniseries that's coming up. I'm excited for that. I love Chris Claremont. The idea of him doing another Gambit miniseries is fantastic for me. I love hearing about classic creators and new, young, eager talent that's coming up, and everything in between having opportunities to be able to make their mark on comics. That only happens if people can make a living doing this, right? So I'm glad that we're speculating about this piece. It's interesting that Mark Waid's talking about this going to a manga point because we're becoming a binge-watching society. I don't know that he's raw or manga. I think it's either manga or manga, and I always butcher it. So, wow, me butchering something on this podcast. What a shock, right? But I love that delivery. I think we're losing something without the serialized, like being able to once a month get an issue 2. So I'm hoping it's not all that. I could see there being more of that, and we are seeing more of that, right? So it's interesting. Go ahead.
Something I was always thinking about is doing the digital monthly, but then only have paper in the collected. So instead of you'd still be able to, if you wanted to get digital, you could get your digital stories every month, or in paper format, they would only have the collected. They wouldn't have the paper floppies anymore. That's something I always thought maybe they would go, a route they would go, within the comic books.
And this isn't me disputing what you're saying. I think my question is, can comic shops sustain that? And that's going to be a piece where he talks about comic shops diversifying and things like that. I went to, I mentioned it was either the last episode or the episode before that, my wife and I were going to Geneva on the Lake, right? One of the things I love about Geneva on the Lake is they have a couple different shops that are timeless classics, the reseller shops, things like that. And I went this time, I have a Polymega video game system, which is a retro video game system where if you buy the cartridge, you can download the cartridge to the system. You own the physical copy, so you've bought the copy, but you put it on the system and it up-reses it for 4K. It basically turns it into a digital console. I deliberately bought a couple of classic games in that shop because I've gone in there multiple times over the years. And being able to go and support that shop, because I love browsing through it, is important to me. I do the same thing with comic shops. And I'm linking that shop because it's the same kind of thing where they're trendy shops that have unique product. And I'm a big believer I love digital just like everybody else who enjoys digital right now. I love the shops just like everybody else who loves both. I am very much a hybrid fan, and I want to support business when it's in there. So I don't know what the good answers are for comic shops moving forward. I think diversifying is, and I think to his point, your current comic shops are doing that with gaming and just offering a wide variety of pieces that they're available with. Getting to know your audience in your area, what they're interested in, what they're looking for. It's tough to be a comic shop audience, a pop culture shop audience, a pop culture shop owner. And staying up to date, staying current, and being able to not overextend yourself with product. Because here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on product that nobody's going to buy, right? But you want to be able to have a diverse line of products that will draw people into your store and to draw people to walk out with stuff.
Yeah. Whether
it's one thing, 2 things, 3 things, 10 things. They walk out with something. They're compelled to buy. And I can't imagine what it's like, and I applaud any of our comic shop owners that maybe listen to this podcast or things like that. I salute you. I support you. I come into your shops. I always try to walk out with something. Really, I don't do that with looking for, okay, I'm going to grab something that I don't want. I'm always pleasantly surprised that every unique comic shop has something.
Yeah.
some swag, some comics, some collected edition, something that I'm looking for as a fan or didn't know I was looking for till I saw it in that shop. And that's a sign of a good shop owner who's able to keep up with the times. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a comic shop owner now and to have that passion to try and stay up to date and meet the needs of today's audience. Because it's a mishmash today.
Yeah. Well, and it's, also the thing about the other side of it, with like the actual physical publishing companies.
Yeah.
The people who actually physically create the books. Because that in itself is another industry that's completely dying out. Just,
sure.
Because we're going away from printed anything. Everything's digital. Everything's on, your phone, your iPad, your computer, this and that. It's the electrical stuff, the digitalized. So that in itself is also getting hit. So there's so many different things that comics as a concept will survive, but who goes down with them?
Right.
And you wonder, like with creators, because if the comic company doesn't have such a high overhead cost to print the stuff, will they drop the price down? Will they cut? Will creators make more money? Will creators make the same money? Will creators make less money? And the comic company say, we're able to sell it now for $2.99, even though it costs us a penny, or whatever the price is. And what's going to happen there? Where is that going to play out? So there's so many things that's going to happen that I'm curious to see where this plays out. And I hope all the good people make it, and by good people, I'm talking comic book companies, creators. I'm talking the actual physical publishing companies that are really hurting, there's a lot of people out there who can get hurt by this. And I'm hoping that we all survive.
Interesting how he talks about 16 to 20 months being the tipping point to get an audience. And I get that. I think there's a point where there's the initial people that'll jump on in the first 5 issues that are people that have always had it on the radar. But beyond that, there's a certain amount of time where buzz needs to be generated for a book, right? Continued buzz, continued talk. And if you only give a book 5 issues, then you drop off, that's problematic. Black Adam having 12 issues is a nice, healthy breathing room for potentially, it's still not that 16 to 20 months, but potentially to be able to say, maybe we continue this on, maybe we do Black Adam 2. I think it's very, very hard for new books. Wonder Girl, did you know Wonder Girl was canceled?
No.
I completely didn't know. So I've been getting caught up on, clearly, you can tell what I've been getting caught up on. Those Wonder Girl tie-in issues to Trial of the Amazons?
Yeah.
Content in that was meant for the Wonder Girl main series and was moved over to that, some of the content in that, so that way it could be a part of that series. It's gone. It's done. Wonder Girl is done. Now there's going to be news about the continued fate of that character, but you and I were both raving that series. And I want to be very clear, my getting caught up on that series is a time factor, not a quality factor. I'm getting caught up on Detective Comics right now, which Batman's my jam. So if I'm doing the same thing with Wonder Woman, I want to be clear, this is not a quality issue. Wonder Girl, I adored that series. What are you canceling that bad boy for? I don't know what's going on. It's really challenging right now for, I think, a new comic concept to be given any breathing room to develop an audience. And
that's messed up. I'll be honest with you, because that was an outstanding series, and I'm angry about that.
But it matches what Russell's saying.
No, I
where
agree.
He's basically saying, "Hey guys, 16 to 20 months is when this thing generates an audience." So, to his point, Wonder Girl never had that. So he's bringing up some great topics here that we haven't really discussed, and that's a series that I loved. Loved the art. I loved the writing. It was, everything about that was super cool. And that's an example of, well, why wouldn't you give it at least the crossover and beyond to see what happens after the crossover? Do more people jump on it after a crossover where she's connected with Wonder Woman? Why wouldn't you have done that? Weird stuff. I'm glad we had it. So I'm going to say weird stuff, and it sounds like I'm being bitter or anything like that. I'll take the issues that we had. Wonder Girl was a great series all the way through. But if you're doing a major crossover with Wonder Woman, wouldn't you be like, we believe in this book enough. Let's give it a few issues beyond the crossover to see if people dig it after that. Maybe people that did not get that chance. There's a natural gateway with Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah, it angers me. I'm angered.
Yes to your I agree with your Anyway, I want to thank Russell for always calling and supporting the show, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, buddy. He's been a long-time friend of the show, and I always appreciate when he calls in. If you want to call into the show, both for this and for our contest, it's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having our discussion kind of change and evolve based on your feedback, so feel free to call in and give us your thoughts on the show.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
I would like to remind everyone about our email address, which is ragingbullets@gmail.com. If you don't want to call the voicemail line, that's a great way to contact us via email. Ragingbullets.com is our show website, which feeds into our Facebook fan page. It also feeds into Twitter. We are proud to be part of a Facebook group community. And keep in mind, there's two of them out there. One is our older Facebook group community that has a larger audience base. It's the one that we built over the years. But then Facebook kind of shut us down and brought it back again. We've left it up and running as an archive so that way people can go ahead and see that one. Please go ahead and click on and join the newer one. I want to thank everyone who participates there because what we're very lucky of, our Speeding Bullets segment comes exclusively from content provided by our crack team of people that are kind enough to jump on and say, hey, there's a news article that I think is important. Here's something I've done for my blog. Here's something that I think you guys should be talking about. Here's something that I just saw that I thought was cool and funny. I appreciate all of you participating on that because Speeding Bullets is really put together by the fans. So thank you very much for being a part of this podcast. The About Us section of our show website is where you can link to us on gaming platforms and social media. You can connect with us in those particular fashions. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Dark Crisis. Excuse me. We have Dark Crisis Worlds without a Justice League Wonder Woman one-shot, 40% off, only $2.99. And we have the Tim Drake Robin series, issue number 1, 50% off, only $1.99.
The deals of the week over at InStockTrades.com are super cool this time around. 52 Omnibus Hardcover Edition, $175 regularly, 50% off, only $87.50. Justice League Dark, The Great Wickedness trade paperback, $16.99 regularly, 50% off, only $8.49. Superman 78 hardcover, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $24.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be back, and we're going to be talking about Artemis Wanted and Superman Space Age. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim. Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
it's
Jim, how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's